My name is Richard Eugene Puckett. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate something nobody's ever seen before. I'm going to print out an image, a photograph, on dry paper, no hydration or humidification of the paper whatsoever, in pure platinum. No palladium, just platinum. What I have here is a little bottle, a few ml of 20% platinum chloride. Potassium platinum chloride, by the way, not ammonium. Normally, I would recommend a 25 to 30% strength solution. Otherwise, you won't get the Dmax you need if you just use a 20% solution. However, I'm making a 4x5. I'm going to just use normally 6 drops of sensitizer total for a 4x5. 1/4 so much as is used for an 8x10. You'll see how I arrive well beyond 6 drops for this formula. So, I'm assuming I would be using 2 drops of 20% or 30% rather solution. So I'm going to use 3 drops of 20%. It's 3 drops. Now, before I can proceed, I have to do something that I discovered is necessary to get platinum to print out properly. I have to age it artificially. To age it artificially, I have to freeze this solid. When I freeze it solid, little particles of platinum are going to drop out of suspension and form in the bottom of the ice. Then I'll thaw it out in boiling hot water, refreeze it, rethaw it, and it's ready to use. I'm going to turn this off, go freeze this. I'll show it to you once it's frozen, and then we'll continue with printing. There it is, frozen. All right, I'm back. I'm ready to thaw this out. I'm going to put the shot glass of platinum in boiling water. Don't forget to boil some water while it's freezing. If you're making a small print, it's 4x5, 5x7, it's going to freeze in 5 to 10 minutes. 8x10, twice that, 2 or 3 times that. Now, while it thaws out, here's the paper I'm going to use. This is a little piece of Arches platine. It's quite dry. I just tore it off a larger sheet, a 22 by 30 inch sheet. I ripped it off. You can cut it if you want. Some people say, oh, don't cut the paper, you'll get little bits of metal all over. Oh, forget that crap, just tear it off. Unless you want to cut it. Let's see how this is doing. When you look down in the bottom of the shot glass as it starts to thaw out, you're going to see a darker sediment in the bottom with the liquid. That's the platinum. You've got to try to get that back into solution. Platinum, as you may or may not know, I know some people don't believe it apparently. I've had people say, oh, platinum doesn't age. Yes, it does. Platinum oxidizes over time. Much faster than palladium. I've got palladium, lithium palladium that I've been using for 3 years now. Still in good shape. Platinum, a few months, and it oxidizes. All right, now what I have here is glycerin. This is 99.9% glycerin. You need to add glycerin for these small prints, 4x5, 5x7. You need to add glycerin in equal volume to the platinum. What the glycerin does, besides taking forever to dry, is eliminates grain. If you don't use grain, there, it's redissolved, it's very evenly dissolved, spread out, back in solution, thanks to the glycerin. I always add the glycerin while the shot glass is hot because the glycerin is very viscous, it's thick, and the warmth thins it out, so it mixes better. The third bottle I have is a 26% solution of ferric oxalate. I add ferric oxalate to my palladium and to my platinum to boost contrast. You can use dichromates. If you don't mind using something that causes cancer and kidney failure and God knows what sort of neurological problems down the road, go ahead and mess with dichromates. Or you can use chlorate if you don't mind your platinum print getting all grainy. I mine both of those, so I use ferric oxalate. The only downside to a 26% solution of ferric oxalate, and I'm adding 1 drop, the only downside is it stains the paper deep yellow, ochre. Makes it harder to determine when your print's ready, but that's all right. You can figure it out. You get used to it pretty quick. You're looking for detail in the highlights. That's when you're going to stop printing. You can still see that, even though it's stained. And the stain comes out in the first clearing bath. The last solution I'm going to add, in this case, normally I use sodium ferric ferrous oxalate. That is a 40% solution of sodium ferric oxalate to which I've added 8 drops of 2% ascorbic acid. I don't have any sodium ferric oxalate on hand, and I don't have any sodium carbonate on hand to mix up into sodium chloride, sodium ferric oxalate. So I'm going to use ammonium ferric oxalate. This is a 40% strength of ammonium ferric ferrous oxalate. I added 8 drops of 2% ascorbic acid to 10 milliliters of 40% ammonium ferric oxalate, and I ended up with 10 milliliters of ammonium ferric ferrous oxalate. Same volume as the platinum. So, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have a lot more than 6 drops. Do the math, there are 10 drops in here. 3 of 20% platinum, 1 extra drop to make up for the fact that it's a 20% solution, 50% more platinum. 3 drops of glycerin, 3 drops of 40% ammonium ferric ferrous oxalate, and 1 drop of 26% ferric oxalate. You don't add vitamin C to the ferric oxalate. That'll lower its contrast. I've tried printing with ferric ferrous oxalate. Results aren't very good. It doesn't work. The print came out fine, but when I immersed it in the first bath, which was just ice water, it very rapidly turned a very dark brown, almost black, and it just faded to black. I don't know why, and I'm not really interested in experimenting with it. I don't care, in other words. Ammonium ferric ferrous oxalate, sodium ferric ferrous oxalate work with this. I recommended briefly, and then retracted, lithium ferric ferrous oxalate. But lithium ferric ferrous oxalate introduces grain. You got to use all kinds of glycerin to stop graining of an image printed out with platinum and lithium ferric ferrous oxalate. All right, now I'm going to spread it on this sheet of Arches platine. Just pour it out. There you go. And brush it out. I've already got some dust particles and a cat hair or 2 in here. My cat, I don't know how he gets hair into things, but he does. If you've got a cat, you understand. You put up with the filthy things. I'm not sure why. At any rate, you spread this stuff out as best you can. Try to get it across the paper evenly. The more smoothly you brush it out, the smoother the tones appear in your print. So you go back and forth, up and down. Generally, most things you can ignore. Most little particles of lint you can ignore. In this case, I've had a big chunk of cat hair. Good Lord. Great big cat hair. So I'm trying to get rid of that, and I got rid of it finally. But lint, bits of dust, just leave it in. When the thing dries, just flick it away with your fingernail. It's not going to affect the print in any way. I wasn't so sure, but I tried it after someone told me that's what you do, and he was right, by God. Worked just fine. Okay, here it is. It's sort of olive colored. Now what I'm going to do with it is put it in my printout box and let it dry in the dark. There's nothing in there, nothing in this thing well, I don't know if you can see, but there's no humidifying chemical or anything like that in there. It's just an empty box. I'm going to dry my printout in there. And when it's dry, I'm going to turn the camera back on and print this image out. All right, it's been about 20 minutes. Pretty sure this is dry now. You tell by holding it up obliquely to the light. You've got to make sure this paper is dry when you make a print with glycerin, because if the glycerin isn't dry, it will form black specks in the image when you lift away the mylar. And you want to use a sheet of mylar when you're printing with platinum and glycerin, because glycerin holds moisture in the paper. I guess like that. And it can attack the negative. There we go. When it attacks the negative, by that I mean it will etch your negative. That may not be so important if you're using a digital inkjet negative. If you're using a film negative, as I am, that's important. All right. I'm just going to get this on, put it in the contact print frame, and then I'm going to turn the camera back on as the image is about ready. So, all right, I think it's about ready. I checked it. Looks pretty good. Printing out dark. The reason you got to use a stronger strength solution or an extra volume of solution is the glycerin. You're adding all that extra glycerin, you're diluting the platinum. The result is a weaker printout. Let's see how we're doing here. Yeah, that looks good. Looks okay. Looks can be deceiving, but let me turn this off. See what we got. This is the printout. Well, it's a little light. It's a little lighter than I intended. I should have burned it another. I'll show it to you. I should have burned this another 2 or 3 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes. But it's not terrible. There you go. Get it in focus. You can see it. You see the thigh here is a little light. It should be a little darker. But there's the printout, and there you have it. And that's how you do it. No more 6-month learning curve. Go for it. Shoot me an email, richardepuckett@texaschrysotype.com if you have